Playing stream. Alright, here we go. Stream is now commenced. Late as shit. Bye. Xbox. There we go. It has been a minute since I've played this.
How hilarious.
I want to see if I can change my controls. Because they're so much different than the other games I play. Oh, I can't change it. Okay, I can customize the controller layout somewhat. Alright, so is there a aim, ultimate fire, jump? It's like a weapon. I wanna legacies, 10-wheel drive, look straight. No, I definitely want. What does southpaw change? Top guns? No, resistance. Couch vehicle boost. No, why is that all weird?
Yeah.
Function 2 buttons can be swapped. Alright, it's gonna take me forever to figure out the shit. Alright, let's just go. Did you empty your backpack? Oh, alright. No, let's just let's make one stab at it. And then if it don't work, we'll just yeah.
Haven't found anything good. My weapon machines will fix that for you.
3 ammo per shot. No. Explosive damage. Fire. That's fire, gun, and that. Alright. I thought we had to. Yeah. What? Really? You're talking about to get up there? Oh, we're just trying to go where you are now. Alright. Yeah, we had to blow ourselves up with this thing. There was something where we had to go on top of like the steam thing to get the turn it on or something. That didn't work. Oh, we got what are these things? Badass fire skag. Ah. Oh, he's tearing my shields up. Oh, I need your help. Oh, we made more little fire shits.
Nobody seems to be around.
Die, motherfucker.
Just drive up and honk your horn. Maybe this won't be so
Oh
hard
shit, he
after
set me
all.
on fire. I think this shotgun I think is fire too. Oh yeah, I'm about to. Oh, I forgot about my ability. Yeah. Attack my thing. Attack my thing. Grenade out. It's hard to tell where their heads are. Everything is just like fire color. Alright, he's dead. There's a grenade. Yeah, that was just for an achievement. That was an achievement, I think. Here's a Titan class mod and a grenade thing if you want them. The class mod is health regen 1.4 per second, gun damage 15%, shield capacity negative 32. Alright, and the grenade is a lob grenade. Grenade damage is 288, blast radius is 77. Holy shit. Okay. That was crazy. Alright, so now we gotta figure out where we got to go next. Yeah, where you know where we have to go though? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Close that. I don't need that open. I'll play this again. This is good stuff. Play your music. Let's do that. Yeah. I can't. What has happened? I can't get up this step here. Oh, is that what happened? Oh man, I didn't update my titles. Oh well. Whatever, I don't got time to mess with that. We got to go. Alright, what? I see that. Okay, you look fine. You look like you're handling that just well. What's up, Zeddy? Yeah, Borderlands tonight. This is how Kim drives. Can you see this? Actually, let me... What are you talking about? I'm not opening up any menu. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Alright. Stop shooting rockets at me. Alright, where do we go?
Go left.
Oh, I forgot what button drives.
That way.
Keep going left. Ooh, are we going in this place?
Yep.
Okay. Which way do we...
You gotta go honk the door at the gate. You need to go in.
I don't... What button honks?
Yeah, I'm opening the gate.
Yeah, you better open the gate. We're clearly bandits.
Hold it, idiots. That don't look like one of our technicals.
We're clearly bandits. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, bro? Oh. They're really messing us up. I'm actually gonna hop out. Oh, it's blown up. Oh, that hurts so bad. Oh, jeez. I'm down.
Oh yeah, I'm about to be too. Wow, it's been a long fucking time.
I'm trying to get my second wind. I got that. Leave this guy right in front of me. I'm gonna... Okay, I'll get this other bandit. I'm about to die, actually. Alright, you want to get me up? There you go, thank you.
I probably got you.
Thanks.
Let's get all ninja-fied on that.
get your special. Oh man. Leave him. Damn it,
Sorry.
baby.
There we go.
Alright, so off to
That
a
was
great
rough.
start. You know what? We're pretty rusty. I was not prepared to get that hurt
Yeah.
that fast.
Same here.
Hopefully we can
Same
get some
here.
help.
Borderlands is amazing in that one. This is Borderlands 2. Yeah, this is one of the games that got Kim into gaming. Actually, it might be. Well, no, you played Left 4 Dead with me on the 360.
Yeah, but I didn't like
I
it.
did it, but I didn't like it. Oh, is this a vault symbol? No. No.
Maybe.
It's not.
I was wondering why they let us
No, I
go
was
back
talking about
there. I
was
thought
talking
maybe
about
there
that
might
right
be a
there.
vault symbol.
But it's not.
No. Well, still, anytime there's like a path for no reason, it might be a vault symbol.
Oh, that didn't work. I can't.
All right.
I don't know.
How do we get in?
You're the Borderlands champ.
Oh shit.
So we gotta wait. We gotta talk to Ellie. We gotta go talk to Ellie first, bro.
Ellie's the hostage.
Oh.
No, she's the hostage.
No, it says rescue Roland.
Oh, I killed myself.
Oh, jeez, Louise. Let's do the hot pink one. So where?
Oh yeah, we have to go
All right,
over
I
here.
got the car. I got the hot pink whip.
They didn't say anything. Like, did you hear like Lilith say anything about going to?
No, I wasn't really paying attention, but I am playing as Zero. I've never played as him before. I did it because when we started this, when we went to play, we were gonna play our campaign from when we played before, but like everything was just deleted. It was gone. So we had to start a new one, and then I never played as Zero, the assassin, invisible clone guy. So I figured I would do that. Oh, look at this motherfucker. Alright, you ready? Hop in the whip and go.
Yeah,
I don't know. But why walk when we can drive? It was nice when we used to play this side by side because I could drive and Kim could just open up her.
I know, I can see what you're doing. I'm
Okay.
gonna go that way.
I could drive and Kim.
You got the wrong kind of gun.
I just picked whatever.
Gotta pick the rocket.
Alright, well here we can go swap.
Oh shit, I forgot about these helicopters.
But yeah, so Kim could just open up her map, and we would just. I'd be able to look at the map while I drove.
Well, like, no, maybe for Borderlands 3, like we should move the TV back out here. Make it like a thing.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, we could actually probably find a. I got the right gun now. Find a cheap. Yeah, you know, we could move the TV out there because I'm playing on a computer monitor anyway, right in here. So it's just out there. Set it up to stream out there once a week or whatever.
Maybe the guns work better, damn. It's not easy to hit the buzzer.
Well, I can take care of those guys. You get all the bugs. Oh, and this guy. Holy shit. In front of us. punk bitch. Yeah, you punk bitch. You take that.
Another, I don't think they stopped coming.
Yeah, I'm just going to Ellie.
And she's like rushing like a fucking.
I should have killed your fat ass when I had the chance!
She's so fucking crazy. Likes cuddling and murder. I mean, who doesn't?
That was awesome. Oh, howdy! I didn't see you there.
Man, my throat is sore. What do you mean? What do you mean? You didn't see? Oh, here you are. Hey, Ellie. I can't wait to.
You know what I was gonna say?
Name's Ellie.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Told me you was coming. Don't get many visitors around here.
Never
Especially not
mind.
one so cute. Trying to rescue your pal rolling from the dam, huh? I bet you could fool those blood shots if you drove up in one of their custom trucks. I got one right over yonder that I crushed with the driver still inside. My bad. Well, I got a vanilla technical in the shop, but most of the parts we need. Just gotta doll it up with some more of the bandits' trimmings. Spikes, blood, skulls, that kind of thing. You could probably scavenge that stuff from the bandit patrols around here.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can do that. All right. So we need 5 banded vehicle parts. Oh yeah, I need health.
Welcome to Dr. Zed's Portable Clinic. What can I get for you?
Boop 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 bum 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 bum.
I'm thinking about buying this shield with the shock Nova Blast.
Okay. That's when it gets down to 0 and explodes. Shock damage, right?
Catch you later.
That's when
What?
it gets depleted. It explodes. Shock damage.
Wait, what? It's not here.
It's the very bottom
You'll
one.
find better merchandise anywhere else.
Or-
I bet you.
Yeah, but I thought I bought it. I guess I just sold mine. I didn't
Nice.
actually buy it. I just sold mine.
Cool. Ooh, I need bullet. I need handgun
Come on,
ammo.
caravan, people. We're carrying very valuable stuff. Papa, hold on. And I ain't getting robbed again.
Good enough.
Alright. So let's go destroy these mofos. Oh yeah, give me that purple bar stuff.
I think there's more loot downstairs.
I thought we weren't gonna get wrapped up in all this stuff.
Oh, it's like nothing. No, I'm talking about when you open up your menu and spend 15 minutes. When you want to do that, I'll take a time. How about we like plan it better?
Yeah, Ellie scares me too. She's one.
Ellie is a delight. You don't know anything about her. Don't talk about her.
I mean, look at her. She can withstand
Alright,
rocket
so we need to
blast.
go. Alright, so we gotta go, like, blow up the cars so we can.
Yes, ma'am.
You'll have to blow up some bandit cars and grab the crap from the wreckage. And don't pay them any mind if they start calling you names. Just makes killing them that much more fun. So you and my sister are getting along pretty well, huh? That's cool, that's cool. Of course, you make fun of the way that's one part.
Okay, cool. We just have to drive over it. Nice.
Here comes the next. No, it's Spider-Man. Here's the next one.
Oh, by the way, I got my catch ride station up and running again. Just haul your fine self to
Oh,
the garage and
hey.
sit in the car.
You're going out of the thing.
We're about to blow up though.
What is this
Yeah,
caravan?
there's another one in front of us.
All right, I'll surrender. Just rob me and get it over with.
Alright, you kill that guy. I'm gonna go rob the caravan.
Sweets. Yeah. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. So close.
Yep.
Did I get him? Alright.
I got the part.
Just finished prepping my truck for those bandit parts. Just get a few more and we'll be good to go.
Alright, so we should have 3.
So there's shields up here if you want.
No, we should have 4. We're missing shit.
That's a good turtle
Because we just
shield.
killed 3 things there.
There's a Corrosa Nova one. Yo, he's driving away. He's
Oh
driving
man,
away.
I'm just falling.
Grab them things and just jump off.
Alright, let's pick it up.
I'm already off. I fell off when he started pulling away.
Okay.
Oh,
Hey.
you're here. Okay, I was coming to get you.
Alright. But that's really we're misplaced. Did we like not get parts because they weren't bandits?
Yeah, I guess.
Or did we like just miss them?
Maybe.
Because like we already killed 4 cars. Like,
Yeah, maybe we don't get them off the caravan
4 parts.
things. Remember, we gotta be the actual bandit runners. I hear them. I just heard a car. Where'd the car go? Oh, here's one right in front of us.
Where is he? Oh, there he is.
All right. Whoa, and there's another one.
Keep it up. You're just
Oh, we got. I'll take care of the flyer.
Yeah, he's hard to hit with a rocket.
In front of us?
Babe, I love
Okay.
this car. Oh, there he is.
Alright, that motherfucker's dead.
Oh, there he is.
Ah, mother bee. I'm Mary Poppins, bee.
Almost got a bandit car? Roland can handle whatever the Bloodshots dish out, but I generally don't
Cut the tape, cut the tape.
Get the knife, cut the tape. There's stuff here. I want to see what it is.
Right.
Oh, it's. Oh, it was a orange shield, a legendary impaler.
I already have an orange card. Orange thing. So why don't you take that one? I have an SMG.
Ah, you fancy, huh?
Get in
Alright.
the car, big.
I'm Mary Poppins, big.
Alright, turn around and start heading back that way. There's one.
Well, there's like a boost button, I think, right? There it is.
Yo, I am like so bad at keeping track of this thing. I like was looking on like the complete other way.
Just bring it back and we'll get you rolling.
Alright. Trying to get experience, baby. Go back.
Go, drive. There we go. There we go. This way.
Yep.
Whoa, you hear that crazy music?
That way. Yeah.
Oh, Fix me up a ride. Oh, somebody's shooting at us. Somebody's in here. Not no more, they not. Alright, build a technical. Get, how do we build it? Oh, we gotta go over here and like do stuff. There we go.
Now we just gotta get in the capture ride system.
Stop looking at me, you're scaring me, Ellie. You're scaring me.
So, that
What?
sucks. But I just bought that Nova Shield. So the one I picked up
Really?
that does
Now you can strut one
corrosive
of those
instead of
bandit-looking
shock,
things from any of my brother's
that
catch
100
rides.
extra capacity.
Shy. There's a slag spider ant.
But the Nova damage is like 110 less. But like obviously I need the capacity more, right? Like I should clearly use this one I picked up.
Wanna give me a hand, son?
Maybe like there's been times before where like I
Have you
just
seen
didn't
those
like the
little
shield,
ornaments
so maybe I'll just hold on to both.
I think they're kind of hot.
Did you want the Nova Shield that was 560 minus 145?
No, I just picked up the legendary shield that I'm using.
So what does that do?
It's called the Impaler. Capacity's 319, recharge rate is 46, recharge delay is 1.56, spike damage is 333. Launches corrosive homing spikes when damaged with bullets, deals corrosive spike damage to melee attackers. So it sounds badass.
Okay.
If you got the money, I'll save your gall-darn life.
Alright.
I don't know if it is.
Alright, we have to pick up Ellie's ornaments. Shit, I just threw a grenade by accident.
Oh, I just bought something by accident. Damn it. Assassin. Oh, it was actually a class mod for myself. Assassin. 10% cooldown rate. But I have a 16% team accuracy thing, so I'm keeping that on.
And we got nothing
Yeah,
with that.
definitely. Most definitely, though. Buy a new grenade mod. I keep hitting start to open the menu, but it's not. It's select. Like, what kind of silliness is that?
I know, it's Xbox 360 controls.
Alright, so Bandit Technical. We're gonna do... You wanna shoot saw blades or catapult corrosive barrels?
Catapult, probably.
I think we want the other one, but I don't know.
My buddies kicked me out of their gyro squad, and now they're celebrating with a round of psycho head volleyball. Still
Oh, it's the
balls and
volleyball
burn
one.
their net.
Remember the volleyball game from like Maverick or whatever?
Yes, I do. From Top Gun?
Now that looks
Yeah.
like the car of a psycho murderer. I'm digging it. Get back to the bloodshot.
Oh, you're in the back. You're not in the catapulter. Can you get in the catapulter?
Oh. Yes.
Alright. Watch that wall.
Wait, there's 2 missions. Which one are we doing?
You tell me. Pick up Ellie's ornaments. I guess let's do that.
Yeah, the other one's pretty close though, so before we get too far away.
Oh, yeah, we got... Nice shot. I thought that would be too difficult to actually shoot.
Thank you.
But that was pretty amazing. Yeah, can you take that mother out of the sky now?
Probably not. It's like Farrah. I just can't do it.
Just to get my attention, and I didn't have to do nothing.
Alright.
mother. Bitch, die.
What the fuck? My aim
It was
is
so
bad
good
right
for
now.
that first one.
I know.
Would you rather shoot saw blades? Do you think you'd be more accurate with that?
I don't know.
Oh, you want to
Probably.
go switch?
But I like it, so we're gonna stick with it.
Say no mas.
But Moxie kept hassling me about working for her, putting on makeup.
Alright, stop like
clothes.
here.
I just got sick of her nagging and
Find
came out
Buzzer
here to
Camp.
make it
You
on
see
my
Yeah,
that
that's
on the
that
map?
thing up there.
And I was worried Scooter might have a crush on me.
We gotta jump off that rock over there, if I remember correctly.
Just kind of.
I thought we were picking up her ornaments.
Alright, so do we want to do that now? What do you want to do
Pick up
right
the
now?
ornaments. We're like halfway through that.
Alright.
Nice, nice shot. You go, girl. You go, girl. Nice. Two more.
Would you look at that design? Like an eagle soaring through the midnight sky. Only the eagle's like 300 pounds with a kick-ass rack.
Sorry, Ellie, you're more than 300 pounds, girlfriend.
I know, skinny people don't know that.
Oh, there's like...
Alright, you see it? Oh, is there someone in there?
Nice. Piece of cake.
Alright, other bandits coming. We'll get the last two we need right now.
Die.
Why is he like going away? Alright. Pick that up.
There we go.
Ah, okay. And then we don't need to fight anymore. We
What?
have the
No,
other one.
really?
Yeah, we didn't pick it up. The guy was in the house.
Well,
We already
I
got
thought we were getting parts off of the trucks.
it. We did. We killed it. We killed a car and didn't pick
Okay.
it up.
Oh, okay.
It's right
You're
here.
You're right.
See?
You got enough ornaments. Come back and help me put them up.
Yeah, you go loot that. I'm gonna see how difficult it is to catapult these things.
There's a slot machine in here.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely. As soon as I kill these two trucks, which I'm apparently terrible at. Nice, hit them.
Alright, so can I go smoking out in my safe
Yeah.
building? Don't venture too far.
Yeah, I won't. I'm just killing these guys here, and then I'm coming in. Yeah, mother bitch. Yeah, I'm Mary Poppins, B. Oh man. Shit just got real, bro. Time to drop this sniper for this. Where you at, bro? Alright. Yeah, come and get it. Come and get some, punk. No. Come on, bro. Oh, they're like one shot. Come and get it. Come and get it. Oh, look, they scared. They scared. They don't want none of this shit. That's what I'm talking about. Time to gamble all my monies away. Boom, 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 boom. That's kind of garbage. Kind of garbage, but what? More garbage. Muck it, 2 tiers in a bucket. I'll just gamble all my monies away. Damn, bro. That might be okay. Just 24 by 14 consumes 3 ammo per shot, but I used to get more than a couple shots out of it. One more and I'm done. I swear. I need one more fix. Just one more fix. What is this garbage? Although that might actually not be that bad. Yeah, it's over, bro. Sure is. You ain't nothing but a punk B. Punk sandwiches. Look at y'all cuddling. That's cute. That's cute. I'm stuck too now. Still. Can't wait till the new one where I can run and slide and stuff.
Yes, most of my merchandise was ripped from the hands of dead adventurers.
Alright. Let me get rid of that shotgun. That was not that good. 72 damage, 10 pers, fast I can shoot it. 20 rounds, 33 damage, accuracy searable. So let's see. It's trash. Why would the volume turn back on that? I don't get that. Not super good damage. Actually. But it explodes like a grenade. Actually, what's that then? 76. It's not terrible, but the accuracy is much better. Actually, I'm gonna put this there. I'm gonna try this one. There. Yeah, let's see what happens. Okay. Not super against that. Oh, look at that sway. Look at that's how bad that accuracy is. Can't hit that sign. Oh, hit it with one. Probably much better close. That's not holding the joystick. I don't know. That's debatable. Debatable. It's all about debatables. And that's trash. Let's try that there. I don't got time to think about it. I just need to sell it. Sell it. We're gonna sell it. Sell it. Hello.
Hello.
Hola.
So I totally forgot I had lipstick on, and then when I saw myself in the mirror, I'm like, oh my god, I look like a fucking clown.
You don't look like a clown.
When you think
It
murder,
was
Cut
very
it the fudge
surprising.
out. Cut it the fudge out.
It was just
I gotta
unexpected.
chat.
It was like I only had like the shower light on too, so it was like ah. All right. What have you been doing?
Yeah, I was
Are you
killing
ready?
some stuff and shooting some stuff.
no repros.
All right, where do we go for this one? Oh, we go back to her place. So let's do the volleyball.
Alright, actually my controller said it's about to die, so let me swap real quick. BRBs! Pop that off, pop this right on the charger. The chuger. Turn that shite on. Slide that back in. Put my joystick extender on. Die for me, die for me, die for me. I don't wanna buy for me, buy, for me, buy, for me. Alright, ready? Alright. So we're going to the buzzard camp now? Let's not talk about it.
What?
I didn't crash into a tiny piece of building that stuck up from the sand.
Oh yeah, we're going up there.
Yay, I said that, man.
I know, and I'm agreeing with you. I didn't remember that
okay.
before. Now I do.
We got a bandit technical that's gonna want to mess with us.
Would he probably?
You're in the
Ooh.
camp? You really are a cowboy.
I don't know if there's a way to get
Snag those volleyballs and get some jet fuel.
get this truck out of here later. We may have to just go on foot. Oh, we got.
Oh shit.
Shit, I want to get this gun off.
Oh my god, I'm in trouble.
Alright.
I'm such a fucking idiot. You be elite.
Alright.
Oh, he's running away from me. Stop it, buddy. Alright.
There's another killer marauder back there.
Took long enough.
Alright, cool.
I could get health, that would probably be good. Getting that health.
Who's shooting at me? Who's shooting at me? What? Oh.
I know, I'm having a hard time
It's like,
finding.
how are they always behind me? I don't get it. Oh, we got a buzzer. That might be the problem. That didn't work.
I tried a rocket launcher.
I do have a like a assault rifle that shoots explosive stuff. Maybe I should have that out.
Yeah, probably. Corrosive, too. Oh shit, you're gonna need to get me out.
Shit, yeah, I need to hide somewhere so I can swap it.
I'm gonna hide back here.
Alright, I'm coming.
I'm running out.
I can't get to you.
Pretty
I can't get to you.
Almost there, almost there.
Oh my god.
Oh shit, I'm gonna be on the ground.
You're gonna have to drive your way back up here, I guess. Good luck. Okay,
No, I'm
cool.
up here.
Oh, there's two buzzards now.
Yeah,
Alright, one's about to go down. Not what I wanted to do.
alright, I do have one corrosive. I mean, one explosion. Not corrosive. Oh, it's so close. We got one. Oh shit. Someone else just popped up.
It's not working anymore. It worked in the beginning. Oh, you're on the other side of the wall. Okay, you got yourself out. Cool. Cool, 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 cool. This is crazy. These freaking buzzards. There we go. There we go. Can you get on this side of the fence?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, you got another guy?
Kind of thing. Oh, come on, man.
Good thing you just stood there and let me blast him with this gun.
Are you kidding me?
Nice.
I have no health. Like, I just fucking die all the time.
Yo, what's going on, Rye? What's happening, buddy? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I could probably get to you, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be there.
I can get to you. I'm just.
Oh, okay.
moving.
All right. Because
I haven't
I
even
was
tried to
looking
get-
over the wall and I didn't see like a way for you to do that. So.
I think it's like over here somewhere.
Alright. Hey, there you go.
Yeah, right here.
Shotgun ammo.
Oh shit. Oh god, there's a dude.
Oh, I accidentally just shot his face off. Oh my god, and he can just like jump. I'm lighting him on fire.
Get on your goddamn knees!
Gotta use my berserker.
Oh.
How hilarious.
I need a health. Oh, there's a health. Nice. No, leave me alone. Leave me alone. You don't see me. Nice.
Yes.
Nice. How you like me? Oh, can we not get in that because it's...
Are you kidding?
Alright, nice.
I got it open. Alright. It's really hard. Can you see it from down there?
No, I could not. Oh, yeah, there we go. Blue grenade mods. Green grenade mods. I don't know, you can just pick everything up.
Yeah, like my Nova thing, I think, did a ton of damage.
You just hold X and pick all that up.
I think that was very
yeah,
helpful.
I saw it explode a couple times. There's a green sniper rifle over here that does... That might be up your alley. It's the...
Yeah, mine first fires.
Posta. Sounds like it's up your alley.
It's a shame that I like elementals, but it's 50 more damage, faster fire rate, and no burst soon, so pretty much you need to use it. I really like the melee ones, though.
Oh, I'm gonna show you these hoodies I found when I was looking for a picture for my post. These sweet ass, like a Maliwan hoodie, Vladov hoodie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were
awesome.
like, and they're like, not just like something with like a little word attached to it. It's like full hoodie. Looks like it's super dope. I'm gonna be sad if they don't have one of my size. But that's the kind of
well, like, is it like an Etsy
no,
thing?
it was on. I forget the name of it. I'll have to. I forget.
I was gonna say, like, even if they don't, you could probably like contact the seller. Situations. Man, if you find any health,
Yeah, I found
out.
one, but I needed it.
Well, obviously, like. All right, we didn't pick up anything.
Yeah, I picked up a couple of like mission things. I think 3 in total.
Oh, I need to get to the roof. Oh, come on. Where's he at?
Oh, over here. I wish I could ping him like Apex.
I found him.
Wow, this accuracy of this pistol is terrible. Oh, there's a health. He dropped the health.
He
Go
just
get him.
dropped
Go get
out.
him.
I saw.
Oh, he just dropped uranium.
Never ends.
Uraniums.
What did you use?
I was using pistol,
Oh, I used a lot of.
but it don't matter. I'm good. I have enough.
I run up this ramp. Oh, you fucking dumbass.
What happened, Kim?
I missed the building. Dumbass.
Oh, there's another gun over here. A shotgun. I know you don't like shotguns. Does explosive damage though. You want to check it out? Right here.
No.
Alright.
It's gonna take up space. I'm not gonna use that.
There's an assault rifle. I think it's single fire though. It's one of the.
Same thing.
More
More people over here. Did we finish looting?
I think so.
I think it's
Yeah,
like
I
a
think
new section.
I looted everything I could find. Oh, I guess should probably put the sniper on, right? Or you're using a sniper, right? So.
I got a sniper.
Yo, whoa, bro. Whoa, bro. That's just not cool, bro. Gotta be careful with the Goliaths. Don't want to shoot their heads off.
You have to knock their head off.
No.
Isn't that part of
Nope.
killing them?
I don't think so. I'm shooting this guy in the gut and the crotch. And he's almost dead.
Come out, buddy.
Come on, buddy. We don't want to hurt you. Just come on out. There you go. Nice.
Don't snap. Oh, there he is. Okay, running down.
Alright. Oh, we got more buzzards.
God, well, I'm gonna build it.
Oh. Well, lucky you. Oh, I may have went too far. Whoopsie daisies.
Oh, shit.
Oh, there's two of them. Tora. Oh, I just like watched those like come right in and hit me in the face.
Fucking knew that was gonna happen. Ah,
Oh, I blew up the baby Goliath's head. Oh, leave me alone, man. Oh, I'm about to die.
fine. Leave him, leave
Yeah,
him, leave him.
I'm leaving him. I ran away.
Big!
I ran away. I was hidden.
Because of Goliath?
Yeah, the
That
Goliath, they go nuts when their head comes off. I need health. Health. Yes. Alright, cool. Alright, I'm
Oh,
coming.
man.
Oh, you're dead? Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I think I've died so much. Oh, man, I'm so far.
Alright, Goliath is down. Oh.
Like, I really wasn't expecting, like, more people to pop out. What What's the critical spot?
On the buzzards, I have no idea. No idea.
We didn't knock down the
He's
second.
down now. Wow, what guns are you using so I know what ammo to call out for you?
I've been using sniper and pistol. Oh, gun case.
Okay.
Sniper's what I need, though. Oh, it's plasma.
Nice. Alright, here's a new fire pistol. I don't know if you're into that. Maliwan.
Maybe, but I haven't. My explosive pistol has been very
alright.
useful.
I'll bring it to you. I'm right here. There you go. Also, there's that assault rifle I was talking about earlier too. Oh. Oh, shite. Oh, shock pistol.
I can't believe still, like, it let me when I was down, it let me crawl somewhere that, like, you couldn't crawl to. You weren't down.
Well, I couldn't figure out the crouch button, so maybe I could have got there, I just didn't have enough time to do it. Oh.
Yeah, I'm full on anything but sniper, so pick up whatever.
Alright, what's this? Class mod for the Psycho. We don't have the Psycho, but it's worth 250 bones. I guess I'll take it.
I forgot they added a Psycho class.
So we need to pick up 2 more volleyballs. Where the fudge are these volleyballs?
It's up here.
Oh, I see one up there.
There's one, like, right where I am.
You almost got everything.
What the crap is going on? What the crap is going on?
Oh, you got
Yeah.
there.
Where is
That was misleading where it was on the map.
we gotta get the last one over here somewhere we gotta find.
Now douse their volleyball net with fuel and nail those sons of bitches.
Oh, I love that this pistol is so accurate. Behind you.
You're a psycho.
So this pistol's not very accurate, but it's like accurately inaccurate. So like it's the same, it's off the same. There's sniper up here. There's
What the
3
fuck?
things of sniper
Couldn't hit his head.
up there.
Took so long.
Yeah.
Go up there. Nice!
More sniper down here.
On a sniper.
doused in that in gasoline and light that shit on fire. So like the sun went down just now as we completed that last part of the mission.
Yeah, I guess so.
This is not non-copyright music.
I don't have a. Do you have a fire gun equipped?
No, we have to do that. Do I have a fire gun? I do have a fire gun.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one. I just didn't have it equipped.
That must have buzzed their towers. No more sweaty slow motion volleyball for you
Whoa,
jackasses.
whoa.
I got the need to see. Crap, those are the guys who kicked me out.
What?
Oh my god, they're trashing me.
What? Oh my god. How the fuck? I'm like in his face and I'm not getting critical shit. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, literally, he's on top of me. Like, I want to screenshot this.
You want to scream
Insane.
what?
How are you not dead? How are you not dead? How is he not dead? Oh my god. How do I
Hit the center button and then I think it's X records that.
capture options? It says it doesn't
Oh my
allow
god.
it.
Oh my god.
But like he was, like my whole screen was his face, and like I was getting critical, but like it wasn't killing him. It was crazy.
I need to take this sniper
How did he
off.
not die?
Off of that.
I've like literally died like 5 times, and you've died.
I just died now. What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
Oh. Okay.
Gotta finish off the shirtless men. That's what she said. No.
Hear me? I said we haven't even leveled up once. Like, looking crazy. At this.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm like 2.5 bars to leveling up.
Yeah, me too.
Alright, we got this. Little piece of cake.
Splash those suckers. Yeah, come on back.
Oh shit. Oh, I just hurt myself with my grenade.
Hey, where did you go?
Right here.
Alright, I found you. Is there a place you can get a...
Alright, so we have to go back to Ellie's.
Alright.
There's a catcher right off the ledge here. Maybe we can't even get to. No, we can.
How bad is it gonna hurt, though? Oh, okay, it's right here.
It doesn't hurt at all. Forget what game you're playing?
Yeah, I guess. Here we go.
There we go. Alright, so back to Ellie's. Ellie.
Ow.
Eh.
This place is gonna look badass once they're up.
Where you at, Ellie?
You gotta put ornaments around the garage.
You can be my wingman.
People are gonna see that when they come in and be like, yeah, that's looking sweet as hang 'em.
These are the safest cars in Pandora. Let me drop the numbers at you. 23.
Hot.
There we go. There we go. No.
I was just so confused. Like, the objective on my map was like... was to, like, leave the area.
Theft and interior design. Hell of a day.
So, get past the bloodshot gate. Yeah.
Forgot about these relics.
I gotta go potty. I'll be right back. So here, I can hop in the truck if you want to drive to the next place.
No, I'll take a break.
Couple minute break there. Chat. BRB. You get to look at my sweet potty time thing with my potty time hat.
That's so crazy that both of your places are out.
Get out of my face with that. Slidey McSliders, some lying McLiars, and your bullshit ass bullshit. That's what you're doing. You're doing bullshit ass bullshit. So I don't know where my hardware case is. Sugar. Sugar, 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 sugar. Alright. Alright, there's. And we're back with motherfudging the vengeance. Ugh.
Alright. Time to go to the fast travel. Oh, let me get more bullets.
Gotta go to the fast travels. Travel fast and shite. Go not. We gotta go to the Bloodshot Gate with the infiltrate the shite.
Yeah, we have to go back to where we were before we met Ellie.
It was in the same map though.
No, it wasn't.
Oh no, yeah, we did go through like that, the wall thing. spider ants are shooting their ropes of stuff on me. Your Uber's here. Your Uber's here.
Alright, I'm trying to figure out if I want.
Just laugh at my goddamn joke. Thank you. Thank you.
It's gonna be time to upgrade my grenades soon.
What do you want? I'm running out of soul.
Oh, I can buy rockets now. I'm gonna buy them so I have them. Alright, where's my Uber?
Uber's right there.
Oh shit, I fell in the hole.
Oh no.
Meet me out front.
Okay.
Uber.
I forgot I had stuff I need to sell.
Oh, so now you're gonna loot.
I'm not looting your girlfriend.
You know what?
Alright. You just you
Well,
do
I can't get in. It won't let me switch to
doing
the
like the
gunner
shuffle
seat.
around the back.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm trying
yeah.
to switch into the
Hop
gunner.
out
but it won't
and
let
hop
me.
in.
I don't remember it being so hard. To the left, to the left.
Everything you own in a box to the left. In your stuff and that nonsense that you did because you smell like shit. Boom. Click. 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 Boom. Pretty upset I couldn't put milk in this ice cream. Pretty upset I couldn't put milk in the ice cream.
That's okay.
I mean, says you don't like to do it.
On corn.
That looks like one of ours. Let him in while I try to get Iberian back on the horn.
Why is my phone not charging? Yeah, one
You
second.
drive in. I guess we
No, I
can't
didn't try.
drive.
I didn't try. Oh yeah, there's things stopping it. We
Oh.
can't drive. You ready?
Yeah. Oh fuck! I missed.
Give me your damn rehearsal.
Oh god, my reload's way too slow.
There we go. We've been tricked.
Why can't I get over here?
They don't seem too concerned that they've been tricked.
Now I have that song stuck in my head.
What song?
To the left, to the left.
Well, I mean, we can get it out with like baby shark doo 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 doo, baby shark doo 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 doo, baby shark. Mommy shark doo 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 doo, mommy shark doo 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 doo.
Cool.
They don't look too merry.
Watch out! They've got a badass!
Where am I? Oh shit, I'm like straight up. Oh my god, I'm straight up. I was like trapped in a thing. I didn't fucking know. You got it.
I'm trying. I'm blasting him in his back. Can you get him? There we go.
No. We leveled! Here, is this a good time for a smoke break and you can figure out what you want to level and like keep looting?
Sure, yeah, we could do that.
So I used pistol, but I don't really care about it. I really just... Oh, there's a TDR.
Oh.
I just want any sniper.
Okay. Oh, mission complete. Which do I want? That's 70 magazine size. 32 damage, so it's not very good. Accuracy is 88. $86 in the magazine. I think I gotta do that just because there's so many ammos in the thing, the jig, you know what I mean? 21, now I got one of those 24. Make that trash, make that a favorito. Snappy handgun, that's... I do like the TDR-ness. Skills, now I haven't looked at these in forever, so I don't even know. Let's see. Ow. Melee and maximum health. Use melee damage against enemies with low health. Ow. That's pretty sweet. Reload and weapon swap. Pretty sweet. Bum, 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 bum. I think I want to do that. Oh, badass tokens. Forgot about these mofo. Let's do gun accuracy. Fire rate. Reload speed. More gun accuracy. More fire rate. Go. Gun accuracy. Maximum health. Fire rate. Okay, I'm spending my badass tokens. I had 14 of them or something. Let's do shield recharge delay. More gun damage.
Yeah, did you loot everywhere?
No, I looted. I looked around, but I didn't like go searching on the missions of the missions. You know what I mean? I'll do maximum health for the last one.
Looks like we can got everything.
Oh, here's a case up here. It is grenade mods. Yeah, I went up those steps over there. See those? Boom, boom, boom. And I jumped across. Oh, you can probably get up there, right there. Hey there. I'm actually not really a fan of that caramel and brownie one. No.
You're not?
Brownies especially taste weird to me.
Yeah. Alright, you don't want any of these?
My mustache is itching my face.
I'm not using them, I'm just
That's
gonna
fine.
sell them. Alright.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, let's do this shite. Bloodshot stronghold.
You're in? Great. Roland should be around here somewhere. I'm sure you can handle yourself, but if anything happens to Roland, make sure nothing happens to Roland.
Sniper, sniper, sniper.
Alright, there's a bunch of pistol over here. Full on. Oh, full on pistol.
Welcome, customer.
Actually, okay, I'm full on grenades also.
Almost dead? I can fix that.
Sell that, sell that,
Good luck.
also that.
Welcome to my humble shop.
Alright. Let's go get them, babe. Oh, there's something over here.
There we go.
Wait, what? Those?
Oh shit. Where are they?
One guy was in the water. He's like,
Like that make the hardest time fighting anybody? I'm like getting stuck on walls. Like what is this, Overwatch?
yes.
I'm not asking much for
You handling the bloodshots all right? They've been trying to take Roland out ever since we kicked their asses out of Sanctuary. Should have seen it coming.
Here's a doll SMG.
So yeah, for the hoodies, they had a TDR
No, I didn't see one. That,
one. You should definitely get a TDR one.
there was a definitely Molly one, and maybe there was a TDR. Now I'm thinking there was a yellowish one. I forget. I gotta find it again. But they're pretty sweet.
You don't want none of this, Merc. You're going down! Go get that wall, Buster!
Okay.
Take that, bitch.
Tired of taking orders. You can't handle me. It doesn't hurt. One-liner! You're going down! Look out! Grenade!
Take that.
That fucking grenade is nice.
I don't know if this pistol is just as accurate, or if because I upgraded gun accuracy and stuff on my badass points.
I like being here shooting.
Cover that one! Goddamn Mercs! You can still run! Oh! Ow!
Take that, motherfucker sandwiches. Alright. So I was saying, I don't know if this pistol is just this accurate, or if it's because I upgraded my gun accuracy and gun damage and stuff with my badass points. But this pistol was actually like
Yeah.
on point. More so than the other pistols I was using earlier.
I picked. Here, look at that shield. I like a
Oh, yeah.
500 thing, but it's a no. It's a.
You lose 186 max health.
I don't like them. I don't like
Yeah.
losing health.
Oh no, actually I have a legendary shield at the moment, so I'm not gonna use it.
I think there's a box.
Okay, I'm gonna go. There was a
Wait, no,
there was
there's
a
not.
machine right back there, right? I need to buy ammo. I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking about running back and getting ammo.
Well, I guess I don't need to. I just need to pick up pistol ammo if we see it, because I'm using a TDR.
I mean, we
You know,
killed.
that shit gets crazy.
Yeah. Oh shit, someone's. We weren't here yet. That's a new place.
So you think there's a vault symbol here or somewhere?
There wasn't. It like looked like it, but it wasn't. You need help?
Coming back to you. No, I don't need help.
There's help.
If you are going to have a chance against them, you will need to up your arsenal. You could always arm your men with some high-quality munitions from my store.
So I got 90.
Those bloodshots.
Now I have 75.
Get in no time.
I need grenades. I'm going.
Alrighty then.
Let's get this out of the way. Yes, most of my merchandise was ripped from the hands of dead adventurers.
Yeah, loaded up on that pistol ammo, 'cause that's all I need to shoot the bitches left. Oh, Alrighty, let's rock and roll there, girlfriend. Wait, hold on, is this the
there's a
vault symbol you
nomad
thought
I
it
saw.
was? Because I think that is a vault symbol. Is that's
Yeah.
not a vault symbol?
It's not. I walked up to it. I couldn't discover it. Oh, you can go
No,
try.
you're right, it's not.
We missed one up here. It has 2 sniper and a pistol. Oh, you know what? I can shoot. I can shoot them from up here and then keep this sniper. I'm gonna start shooting. Ready?
Sure. Who's next, my beloved? I'm Mary Poppins, babe.
Okay, Hyperion. 100,000 bucks for Roland. Final offer. Echo me back and let's negotiate already.
Assault rifle.
Hyperion wants
I'm
Roland back.
good.
Even if they don't buy him from the Bloodshots, they'll be coming for him. You better hurry.
That's
Are you not
fine.
ready? I'm
I can be
sorry.
ready.
Psycho coming.
Oh god.
Yeah. I know.
That hurt.
Damn it.
Big boss. Nomad torture.
Oh shit. Oh shit, there's a turret.
Oh, I just wasted like. Whoa. See all that loot explode everywhere?
On the turret.
Okay. There's help over here.
Okay. Get out of ammo. Well, fuck. Hey, where's everybody?
They're up on the left. At least the big guy is.
Yes.
There we go. Killed, I think, 10 out of 20 enemies with corrosive attacks. Which was like part of a challenge, I guess I got to do. This is my sweet ass shield.
I'm super happy with my grenades.
I haven't been using grenades too much, like a dum-dum.
Bloodshots. I can't help but notice the Crimson Raiders.
I got in that fight, I got 2-second wins because I had grenades out.
If you are going to have a chance against them, you will need to up your arsenal. But always arm your men with some.
Nope, definitely wanna leave that pistol. I need to put. I accidentally swapped this shite. Trash, trash.
Oh shit. If I would have walked up the other way instead of right down the middle, there's three things of sniper bullets right here. I'll probably run back for it.
Oh, this is a TDR2 and it does more damage. It's less accurate though. Well, yeah, I mean, I would definitely remember it and run back. That's just what I do. Okay.
Oh, did you leave money up here?
I don't remember opening that box.
I mean, I was over here during the fight, maybe. God.
Unsurprising.
Alright, I think we got it all.
Let's get the going.
Alright, I don't need sniper. I almost picked that up by accident.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need sniper either.
Ooh, I remember this. Alright, I see somebody on the right. This one's crazy.
We got this. There's gonna be a piece of cake for us.
That's all I want to do. Clean up this planet.
Because we're real deal gamer.
Alright, I'm ready.
Alright, start it off.
Sanctuary? Hell, I'm happy to do it.
The Resistance needs the info Roland gathered on the vault. We know how Shannon wants it open, but we don't know why. If you rescue Roland, we might have a shot at stopping it.
Oh, my aim is fucked up right now.
Give me your damn loot!
One big guy down. Another one's on fire.
Alright. Can I run back to
Yeah,
this
good.
bullet?
Maybe I'll use you to blow a midget's head off. How hilarious.
Oh,
You
there's
just
a new
set off my
sniper
trap
here.
card. Your death approaches.
So new sniper here. It's a Malawan. 147 damage.
Oh.
95.7.
How was that the whole fight? Fire rate's a little. Do you want a sniper
Ma'am.
rifle? I don't love it. I'll probably take the
Okay,
one
yeah, then I
have now.
definitely, yeah, I'll use that.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is definitely a much bigger fight.
Well, yeah, I remember we have to run around this thing. Put this thing like a spiral or something.
Pistol or something?
Yes, actually both.
There.
You. Alright, I'm full on pistol now.
Oh.
Time to try this new sniper rifle. Goes the band, yeah.
Yeah, like I keep looking over here to see if I can get the head out like ever. Or like have a bigger spot forever.
Pop up, mother bitch.
I know, right?
I like this sniper. Whoa, what
I just killed myself on my own grenade.
the? Alright, I got you. I got you.
I don't have anybody to kill.
I got you, you silly thing.
I threw a grenade and then pulled out on his nose, and I fucking and then the grenade went off and fucking killed me.
Come on.
There we go. Oh, come on! Oh!
My skills are sharp.
Oh no, don't run away.
I was just coming for you.
Ah, no. What the fuck? I die so much. Well, like, it all started because I knocked my... It's because, like, when you get freaking win, you don't have your health, and I fucking knocked myself out with my fucking grenade. That was kind of fucked.
Right.
You get him down?
Yeah, he's a dead though. Yeah, my sniper is nice. It does so much damage that, and as long as I'm close enough, it's accurate enough where I can kill with one shot when I'm down and get my second win.
It's my go-to. Like, even in like a crazy fight, like I'd rather have a sniper.
Roland's raiders are tearing us up. Their guns are just too damn good.
There's 2 grenades and shotgun up here.
Sack the hell up and stop dying all the goddamn time.
And I need help. I need some help.
There's a health over here.
Oh, there's some guns over here in the toilet.
Alright, you see where I am?
Yeah. Yes. Oh no! I don't want to talk about it. What a waste.
Oh, did you want
I'm
one of
happy
them?
with what I got at the moment. Happy with my loadout.
Yeah, since you like ran away without taking any, I figured you.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm a good.
Oh yeah, I'm fully restocked too. I opened Borderlands 3, you can't pick up ammo you can't use.
Yeah.
Wait, is it grenades?
There's an explosive pistol. Nice.
Oh shit, Psycho.
Psycho down. There's a lot of burning the light. Down, mother bitches!
Wow! Took my kill, I'm down.
He's behind the box.
I know, I can't get him. He keeps going under the box.
Do not panic.
I got you. I'm Mary Poppins, baby. I don't know why that's stuck
I
in
think
my
I ran
head.
past help.
Oh, here's a Bernie SMG. Oh, it actually does more damage than mine. Everything's better than mine. Accuracy's not as good. And the magazine size is 21. Mine currently is 86. Fire rate's better. Damage is better. Chance is better. The burning per second is...
Did you use a
No.
grenade?
My inventory is full, so if you want any of the guns or this grenade mod, it's all you.
Alright, I was going back to see if there was any health. Alright, so try to follow the wire through that gun room.
Uh-oh, it looks like it splits over here. Oh no, okay. Continues, goes over here, goes out here. Oh shit, there's people up here? Oh shit. I was just following the wire and I got a badass psycho on me now.
Where are you? Oh, you're outside the room?
I'm down. Let me get him. Let me get him. There we go.
Unsurprising.
How about that?
I really messed up, didn't I? Yeah, I wasn't paying attention, I just followed the wire.
We got a live one.
Alright, bunch of help. I'm gonna get some, but you can leave that one for you.
Oh, that almost did 1,000 damage with that shot. Oh, that does over 1,000 damage.
Another badass.
Grenade out. Ghosty.
Come on! Distract them, I need to get around.
I'm shooting them.
Alright, we got him.
Kill that
I
one.
need help.
God, mother. Damn.
I hate how long this guy stays down.
Nice.
It's like perfectly designed for how long like I'm willing to wait before I give up.
How are you on sniper? I got 38.
Oh, you can have it. There's an electrocution. Oh, the health is so
Oh, there's
low.
a
I mean, the damage
there's
is so low.
electric sniper back behind this box. Does 123 damage.
Ooh,
Magazines.
it's really good for shields.
Okay, it's got 9.3 fire rate. It's
Where
behind
is
this
it?
box. You have to extend.
The true world revealed. Weakness
I'm
is
like,
now
look back
known
there.
to me.
Ah,
Time to go to work.
yeah, really fast fire rate. Same damage, so it's really like it's a little bit of a smaller magazine, but I get
There's health.
yeah, electrocution. And I
Health
didn't
over
have
here.
anything. Oh, there's health. Okay.
Alright, this is where this wire goes to. So I don't know if there's anybody else up in this room or not.
fucking forgot we were
Yeah,
doing
that's what led me into all that mess.
I'm full on loot again. Oh, it's this.
Just money. $17. $17. I'm full too. Let me see if there's anything that I can. Something that's cheap that I can just drop.
Oh, I meant like ammo. I have plenty of room. No, I don't. I have 7 space. I have 7 spaces.
Yeah, I have a bunch.
Don't drop anything yet. There's only 1 gun case. Nothing.
Nothing cool.
I'm interested in. No.
Okay. Okay, I'm coming. No.
I need a rocket launcher.
That's that shotgun. No. No. That righteous fighter gun has a lot of bullets. Nah, but you know what? I like my TDR, actually, so yeah, I'm gonna drop some because the value of those are better than guns I have, so.
Alright, well, I can pick up whatever you drop.
Okay. Drop.
That one was a TDR.
Yeah, I have a TDR equipped that I'm using. Not what I wanted to do. Did not want to equip this gun. It reloads really quick. I don't know, maybe. What's the damage of this gun? 72, 24 rounds, I think, but it's not a TV. What's that?
Time to make a decision. Oh shit, we missed a case up there. Oh yeah, that's where I was going when you showed me the shotgun. I forget how to use
You
ladders.
just run right into them and they do it for you.
Alright, there's a purple gun. It's pistol, 74 damage, 97.5 accuracy, fire rate 5, reload 2, magazine 20. Burst, I don't think you like that. I don't think that's good. Are you here?
No, but yeah, I'm right behind you.
Okay. I don't think any of these stats are really good. Do you want me to just read them off to you?
No, you can just have them.
They're all pistols.
I'm happy with my pistol.
Okay.
I'm liking a TDR, so until I find either another TDR or something that's like outrageously better, then I'm even giving up my Jacobs pistols, which I normally use, just so I can have my TDR pistol, which I like.
Alright, I just dropped 2 things up there because they're worthless. But I'm full too. Hopefully we're coming up to a machine. Oh.
Or that.
Just leave! You're not ready! Force grenade!
Oh, we're gonna slow down.
I know. Just wasted it. I just wasted a grenade.
Holy yikes, buckets.
Hey, Bloodshots. I notice you're not buying any of my guns. Maybe your words my ways aren't deadly enough for you. With that in mind, please accept this complimentary crate of Marcus munitions weaponry. If you like what you find, maybe we can make a deal. Once you have Marcus munitions, you never go back us munitions.
You never go back us munitions.
You need
I mean,
SMG?
it says I could use it. I have 400,000.
Alright, yeah, it's down there. I'm
okay.
I'm full completely.
Yeah, I saw you pull an SMG out, so I wasn't sure what exactly was happening.
No, I wouldn't, just to let you know, I wouldn't offer bullets to you unless I was fully full.
Okay, good to know. Good to frickin' know.
Just one step closer.
More guns! More guns! More guns!
SMG?
Yep. Yes, okay. So Marcus should be right, or not Marcus. Oh, yeah, we gotta get in there, too. Are we getting into that gun cell? There's...
No, there's guns up here. Shit, I'm still full. Fuck. Did we really not find a machine?
No, ma'am. We're about to fight our way out of this, so... Oh, I kind of remember this. Doing something to walk on the pipes. Oh, yeah, there's a ladder here. First, there's a save point. I can shoot out the save point already. Up here, run down this thing, over here. Oh, vault symbol.
Yeah, it's
There's
probably
a vault
for this
symbol on the
thing.
wall. I forget if there's a code for this or...
I'll just, yeah, I'll have to go down, I guess.
Maybe not, I just turned everything red. Did it open?
Well, you probably need to do it in a certain order. Wait, it's open. You
Okay, I was gonna say I can't hit any of those things again, so...
Man, this sucks. All my loot's full. Ammunition's full.
Explosive rifle... Ooh, a Jacobs...
Like, why? What is this feeling? Like, why is
What do
it
you
like
mean?
this? Where like it's like fake shit in the game you don't need, and it's like there could be like I wish I had less of the stuff in my bag so that I could pick up more of it and wasn't leaving, like didn't leave it here.
Ooh.
But it's like you still have the same amount.
your
Like,
pistol that I'm gonna... It's
sense
green
does
all
that
the way
make?
around except fire rate's the same, but it does more damage, better accuracy, better reload speed, more bullets in the magazine, 12% weapon reload speed, explodes like a gun when you reload it. Oh yeah, man. What are the dollar values? 171, 226, 156, 142.
Yeah. Alright, so let's see. My lowest value is I have 119, 120, 120, 126. So I can pick up all four of them.
Oh, well, yeah, here I got a 64.
You know you can sort it by value,
No,
right?
how do I do that? Oh,
Right trigger.
by items, brands, types, all value. So the bottom of the shit show. Yeah, let's get rid of that shotgun. I have my lowest, my next lowest are 114, 112, 117.
Those are all lower than mine. Drop them and pick them up.
Okay.
Excellent.
I gotta drop one more. I thought I dropped enough. Pop, 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 pop. Wait, it still says I'm full. What? I just dropped the gun. How am I still full?
Yeah.
How does this happen to me? There we go. Sorry, Roland. We just had to sort out our value thing real quick. You ready? There we go. Here we go.
Vault Hunter. Good to finally
Oh,
meet you in
man.
person. Hell of a job fighting through those bloodshots. This'll just take a second.
Roland's a gangster.
Well, that's that. Now let's see about getting out of here. Vault Hunter! You gotta stop this thing!
Now
We shoot it?
we have to go rescue him again.
That's how Handsome Jack pays ransoms. Long time no see, Roland. Soldier! This way!
Oh yeah, a bunch of loader bots.
Let's go, damn it!
They're so cute. They
I
don't know
know.
any better.
I definitely want to draw one of these.
Taking him to the top of the dam. Get there quick.
Oh shit.
Die, you mother bitch! Yeah, there was a loader bot behind us. I'm coming to you now. Oh, you're back here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm back looting.
Looting for what? We ain't got no room to be looting.
Oh, bullets. Pick that right. Well, I think we're moving on to somewhere where we can buy shit, so don't waste time. Just pick up everything you see that you can, and we'll move on.
Yeah, man. Echo.
Chant louder, boys! Marcus can't hear us! Guys! 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 Marcus, you're
Wish I had the corrosive damage stuff.
Alright. I gotta go to bed.
Are you done? I wish I had
You wish
corrosive
what?
stuff.
Yes. Well, my grenade was corrosive, but I don't know if I replaced it or not. I can't remember. I know the shield that I was hanging on to and I wound up not using.
Oh,
Okay, you gotta
sorry,
get out of
good.
the venue, babe. I had like corrosive. I bought the electrical shield and then I got corrosive, so I know that. And then I wound up selling that corrosive shield. But I also had the kind of the same thing where I had 2 grenades that did the same thing, one corrosive and one like fire. And I don't remember which one I kept.
Yeah, my only corrosive is my shield. I mean, it works because like it shoots corrosive bolts at people who shoot me, and like explodes corrosively from
That bot's taking Roland to the drop pod.
shit that like melees me.
Hyperion took Roland?
So it's,
Yeah.
it's pretty sweet.
Jack didn't send Wilhelm, did he? Please tell me Jack didn't send Wilhelm.
That's how mine is, Steph. I have a corrosive grenade, not equipped. Yeah, mine's fire. Let's see how terrible they are. Shit. It's... I don't know. So my child grenades, which do really good, they break into 6 child grenades. Have like 412 radius, 2-second fuse time, and they do 108 damage per second. And that's 477 times 6. This corrosive one is only 256, but it's immediate. There's no fuse time, and there's the blast radius is huge. It's 580, but the corrosive damage is only 87. So you're losing 25 just in the elemental damage. You're losing 220 per each grenade, and then you only get 1 versus 6.
Yeah, that's...
You know, like, that's not...
That's tough.
I mean, like, it is good to have something that's corrosive, though. I really have nothing. Like, that's my only option, because I sold that one shield.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it may be good to just put on for this level. I don't know.
I just won't get rid of it. I like to keep my bags clear of anything I'm not going to use, but I'll just keep it. And we'll see. Alright, so I'm done, but I'm going to leave the game up so you can finish whatever you want to do.
Okay. Well,
Alright, baby.
Ooh, actually, I'm done till I'm just buying these. I'm gonna buy all these class mods real quick, and then, yeah, and then I'm done. We can just log out here. I don't know if we can load back in here. I get left from mic already. I was gonna say we could just exit here, but I don't know if we can load back in here. Right here we can, no problem.
I mean, if you even
Well, we weren't like in the middle of a mission when we just loaded in tonight, so we were like in like.
we're not. We're gonna load up right where we are. Run through the thing so we can make sure it's safe. Go back through the door to where the things are.
Okay. Okay. What's the save symbol look like? What's the save symbol look like? I don't know. I don't know. Where's Bobby Fischer? I don't know. I don't know. I guess that giant vault thing. Okay, cool. Alright, so that is it for tonight. Yeah, it's 2:30. Alright. It has been real, people. Yeah, that's it for the stream tonight. I might play another little bit. I don't know. But anyway. So, I want to thank you guys for coming out. I was a quick surprise stream. I mean, all of a sudden, that's why I didn't change the title. Didn't even think about it. Because I was in the garage doing some stuff. She got out of the shower and we talked. So, you want to play Borderlands? Sure thing. So that's yeah, it was quick. So I appreciate everybody who stopped by. As always, the one, the only Mr. Zeddy. I appreciate you. You're here every stream. Always stop in, and not just stop in, but you chat it up. I appreciate it. It means the world to me. Mr. Rye coming in again. Super common, but I mean he's been in here enough, so I appreciate that. So yeah, if you stopped in on Facebook, those two on Facebook. If you stopped in on Twitch or Mixer, YouTube, whatever, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. To those who didn't stop in,